And good evening, everyone. Live from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. This is the Coach's Box on the Regional Radio Sports Network and on 91.1 FM The Globe, WGCS Goshen, and on globeradio.org. Good evening, and we're so glad you could join us. Apologize for the bit of a later start, technical issues, but we are on the air, and we are live here from the Coach's Box here from Beef O'Brady's here in beautiful Granger, Indiana. It's been a gorgeous week of weather. Now we've got some great guests here. First and foremost, my name's Tanner Camp, filling in for Paul Conges. He's over at Holy Cross College. At the Bethel University Pilots women's basketball team is over taking on the Saints under the direction of Tom Robbins. You can tune into that game as soon as you're done with the Coach's Box. Game starts at 6, so tune in that on the side while you're listening here to the Coach's Box. So we've got two very, very special guests here with me right now. We've got Alex Daniel, the head coach for the South Bend Riley Wildcats boys basketball team, and scheduled to also be on our program is going to be Stephanie Miller, the 12th-year head coach for the Goshen College Maple Leafs women's basketball team. So we got two great guests. It's basketball season literally around the corner for Steph Miller and her squad. They're 3 games in, and they're 3-0 on their season. For Alex Daniel, their season got to come sooner at some point here on this November 3rd, about less than 20 days until November 12th, which is that game at home against LaPorte. So we're going to go ahead and bring Alex Daniel into the show. Alex, first off, thanks so much for taking some time to come onto the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Coach, just to for those listeners who need a little bit of background, again, Coach Daniel is his 3rd year with the South Bend Riley Wildcats. In his first season, 19-7, won a sectional title. 2022, 11-12 overall. So that makes it 30-19 in his 3rd year with the Wildcats. And of course, already coached a couple really solid players in Blake Wesley, of course, and as well as Phil Robles. And of course, Coach, I don't know if you know this, but Phil is now actually at Holy Cross in the direction of Mike McBride. So just give us your initial thoughts so far for Phil. He's been doing some good things already, averaging about 9.5 points in his first 2 games, shooting 32% from the field. No surprise, perfect 4 for 4 from the free throw line, as well as 6 rebounds and has 2 assists total on the year. So first and foremost, just tell us a little bit about what it was like and to see Phil make that decision to go play under Mike McBride.
Yeah, coming out of high school, he went over to PFW and took a walk-on spot over there and gained that experience there at PFW. I know he really enjoyed his time, but as kids come to realize they want to play, they want to get out there on the floor. So that was big for Phil, and I think Holy Cross is a great fit for him. He's obviously in the 2 games, he's done some good things. I was able to watch, I think all their first game, and about half of the Bethel game. I know Coach McBride is probably not too excited about the Bethel game, but I think Phil's going to fit in really well there. He's, like you said, he mentioned he knocks down his free throws. He's a very good shooter from the outside, and so kind of his shooting ability allows him to create some other things for himself and for his teammates on the floor. And so hopefully he can find a spot over there, a niche for what they need and what he provides, and I think he's going to have a good career over there. So.
You talked a little bit about that. Let's kind of go ahead and just give with your background. Of course, you're from Muncie. You graduated from Muncie Central in 2005. Of course, at Saginaw Valley State, then eventually Lakeland Community College, and you finished up at Taylor, so another Crossroads League school. And then you had a couple of other assistant coaching jobs, which include a stop at Yorktown. And then, of course, you were at IUSB, which, of course, is the IUSB men's program. Now they're having some tremendous success, currently ranked 19th in the latest NAIA polls. And, of course, the assistant coach at Bethel before eventually going to South Bend Riley as a head coaching job. So just tell us a little bit about during those stops, what were some of the big things that you really learned and implemented in your kind of coaching style as you get ready to enter your 3rd year with the Wildcats?
Yeah, just through my playing and coaching career, I was able to come across a lot of great coaches. It starts with Bill Harrell in high school, so I was able to have him for 2 years. Billy Shepard, who played for the Indiana Pacers, I had him for a year in high school. And then Matt Fine, who went back-to-back state runner-ups, and taking multiple stops after that in terms of his coaching career. And so I had a lot of guys to learn under, and I made my tour through college there a little bit, but had some great experiences. And then as I got into the coaching world, I started, like you said, I started at Yorktown High School under a guy named Blake Everhart, who did a phenomenal job there. We ended up going to a regional championship game that year. And then I used to be under Chad Tapp, who coached me while I was at Taylor University. Currently he's at Arkansas Monticello, a D2 out in Arkansas. And then Mike Lightfoot and Ryan Lightfoot and then Steve Draymond at Bethel. So just a lot of different experiences. I don't know if there's one I exactly match up to. I probably take a little bit of everything, but I'm just very grateful for those opportunities and those people to bless me during those years of both playing and coaching. So.
Yeah, and you take a look at that Bethel team now in their first 2 games, of course, no question the biggest splash they made over the summer was when they got Drew Lutz back, of course, a Penn graduate, then was at an Incarnate World at D1 school for, I believe, it was 2 or 3 years, then eventually come back to the Pilots with him, and he's already made a tremendous effort. When you see that Bethel team and the success that Steve has had, last year was a little bit more of a down year than I'm sure Pilots fans would expect, but still, I don't know how closely you've been following the Pilots since then, but what are some of the things about Coach Draven that you just really liked, and again, that you really kind of learned from him and then maybe even did you teach him a couple of things to help him as he gets ready for his 4th year with Bethel?
Yeah, I think, everybody thinks got to realize they were in an Elite 8 game 2 years ago. He's done some great things there, and he had a really good group that kind of caught fire at the right time, beat some really good teams there in the tournament and made a splash. And so Travion Cruz was a really good ball player for him that kind of led the group. But Steve's done a great job, and I think this year's team is really going to encompass what Steve's about. I think he's had a chance to kind of get his feet wet and get his, some of the kids that he's recruited in there. And they through these first 2 games, having Drew there is obviously going to make a huge impact. He's going to do great things, not only in the non-conference play, but league play as well. And then I've been really impressed with the Tanaka as well. The other combo guard for him there is very explosive. So they got 2 guys and then a lot of pieces around them that are still trying to, Nate Ertz is a great centerpiece for them and a guy that's going to hold it together. So I think for Steve, this is a group that he's enjoying coaching. I stay in touch with him and the group quite a bit. I enjoy watching them and being around them. So I think he's got a group of kids that are going to buy into what he wants to do and really make a surprise. I think they're preseason 7th in the league, and so I know he's hoping to finish higher than that. So. And
the one thing that you and Coach Draven both have in common is that you definitely were big key contributors to your team, respective teams, both in high school. And then one thing I'm just always curious about, because, of course, he went to LaPorte and then you went to, Muncie Central. And the one thing that I've always wondered is, from a player's perspective, from learning, and especially kind of in that guard spot where you were at, was there anything from your game when it came to coaching that you were kind of hoping to kind of focus with the team? Or example, in soccer you have, if it's a former player, they were goalkeeper, they'll work with the goalies, or they might work with different aspects of the game. So was there anything from during your time in high school that you really looked back on, and now that you got the head coaching gig under your 3rd year, that you have really been kind of focused on, whether it's the offensive plan, whether it's how you play defense, or just anything when it comes to planning out your team assignments and team game plan?
Yeah, I think it's kind of natural for a person who's played the sport to kind of take some of their own experiences, especially at the position, and try to translate that to who they have. So I can remember some unique situations that I was in, growing up and at the high school level where I know that I was the player I was because of this thing that happened to me. So, I remember high school, coming into Muncie Central, I was a freshman, and I don't know, it felt like a month-long period where they would just hand me the ball at the other end of the court, and I'd have to bring it up against this kid named Brandon Kelly. And he would just swamp me for the entire length of the court, and no fouls were called and any of that stuff. But that experience right there was huge for me, how to keep the ball in the middle of the floor and how to keep your head up and not get invited into the traps and taking care of the basketball. So, they're just trying to translate some of those same things, use some of those experiences and try to, form your, Marvin Schindler for me right now. I'm going to put him in that situation. He's been in that situation where I'm just telling guys to get after him. So, yeah, I think that as you go through your playing days, you look back on some of those things. It's like, that's something that I want to make sure that my team does, or my team has that experience.
And you've had it nice because you've been able to both get that experience both at the college and the high school from a coaching perspective. Because when you're an assistant coach, and Paul's talked about this with volleyball, especially at IUSB with their new head coach under Alexander Brzezinski, is that from an assistant coach to a head coach, it's only moving a couple feet. Yet in terms of being able to organize your team and really say, this is Alex Daniel South Bend Raleigh team, or this is Steph Miller's Goshen College team. So what I'm curious is, even just as an assistant coach in college and in high school, were there any other really big major differences? Obviously the speed of play, someone who's played at both levels also is definitely different. But in terms of just the way that the kids, or in this case the young men, approach the game, is there anything that's majorly different between the high school and college game that really stands out to you?
I think what you mentioned, the approach, I think that's kind of the difference maker for it. And obviously when you're at the high school levels, you got some kids that are some that are bought in, some that are there for more of a recreational activity, whatever it may be. They may be an athlete or may not be their main sport, whatever that may be. But hopefully you put yourself in a college situation where you got a group of guys that are all striving for the same thing. And that doesn't always happen. But from my experience at Bethel, I think we had a group of guys that, for the most part, were wanting to win championships and wanting to do great things on and off the court. And so, I think that approach, how do you approach the day-to-day? How do you, guys that are at the college level, if you're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, then what's the separator for you? So those guys got to do extra stuff. I think a great example right now is Caleb Ogins, who's over there at Bethel. He was probably one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He'd be in a drench about 3 hours before game day, just ball handling on the side. Just a guy that had the right approach for it, and I think that's definitely going to carry over to his coaching career. But I think that mentality, how do you gain a competitive advantage against the people you're going against, and what kind of approach do you take off the court, from your diet to your sleep to your school habits, all those kinds of things. It all plays a factor in who you are as an individual and who you are as a team as well. So.
We're now with Alex Daniel here with the South Bend Raleigh Wildcats boys basketball team as they get ready to get their season underway on November 22nd. We'll eventually also have Coach Miller at some point. We're going to take a quick minute 30 timeout, 90-second timeout. When we come back, we'll talk more with Coach Daniel about his team this year. And then also one thing to talk about is the Memorial Holiday Tournament that they'll be competing in late December and some of the details behind that. So once again, Tanner Camp here hanging out with Alex Daniel for the South Bend Raleigh Wildcats, the head coach for the boys basketball team, and we will be right back after this quick 90-second timeout. Once again, you're listening to the Coach's Box here on 91.1 FM The Globe, globeradio.org, and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
What separates high school sports from other athletic programs? We keep education in front of athletics. I'm Paul Knighty, Commissioner of the IHSAA, and I'm thrilled to introduce our new Assistant Commissioner, Janie Elmer, because I know she shares the same passion for education-based athletics.
That's right, Paul. As a former principal, teacher, and Hoosier student-athlete myself, I understand firsthand how high school sports provide a complete educational experience for students.
The real benefit of playing in the second classroom of high school sports isn't just about teams becoming better athletes.
It's about them becoming better people, building character and developing the habits they need to be successful adults in life. Accountability, teamwork, respect, perseverance. These are just some of the life lessons learned on the playing field.
It's good to have another passionate advocate for education-based athletics on the team. Welcome aboard, Assistant Commissioner Elmer.
This is the second classroom. This is education-based athletics. This is your IHSAA.
Welcome back here to the Coach's Box from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. Tanner Camp, huge thank you to Andrew Kirksey for coming over. And, of course, a huge shout-out to Dante Stanton back at 91.1 FM The Globe for spinning the dials and keeping us on the air. Once again, with Alex Daniel, the head coach for the South Bend Raleigh Wildcats. And also joining us now here, we got Steph Miller, the head coach here for the Goshen College Maple Leafs in her 12th season. 3-0 start to the season. So, Coach, first and foremost, thank you for taking some time. I know it's kind of a crazy week as basketball season's underway, but thanks for taking some time to come out to the show.
No problem. It's good to see you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so let's go for Coach. We take a look now, 3-0 to start the season. You got some good wins. And we take a look at least last night against IU Kokomo, the 73-65 win, and then two other really good games as part of the Ruth Gundon Memorial Classic. And I was getting ready to talk to Alex as in December they're going to be competing in the Silcox third annual Memorial Day holiday tournament. So Coach Miller, we'll start with you. The Ruth Gundon Memorial Classic, I was looking back at the schedules, and that was the first that I had heard of that. Of course, Ruth Gundon is who the gymnasium is named after, and essentially one of the most important people when it comes to the Goshen campus. So just tell us a little bit about that organization of the Ruth Gundon Memorial Classic and why it was named after her.
Well, I'll tell you, Ruth Gundon is one of the most famous women's basketball coaches, not just in Indiana, but actually in the history of women's basketball. Not a lot of people know that. It's more of a small school fact. If you're a sports trivia person, Ruth Gundin would be something you might know. But Ruth actually goes back to the implementation of the women's basketball program at Goshen, and she was instrumental in developing women's basketball at all levels back then. It was before the college game or the high school game was actually truly full court. It was the 6v6 style back then when Ruth started. And not only did she coach basketball, most people don't know she was a professor at Goshen College. She coached something like 7 different sports. But she was a real matriarch in the game, and she passed away last year. And as you know, the school honored her and has honored her for years. I got to meet her. I was lucky to meet her in 2011. And at that time, she was still well, and she knew who I was, and she had developed a little bit of dementia over time. But at that time, she would always come in and make a ruckus in the office and give me a little stuff about how I would have to beat Purdue in order to catch up with her. She was the first coach at Goshen to beat a Division I school of that nature. But back then, they all played in the same league, so she got to play against Notre Dame and Purdue. So when she passed this past year, I knew I wanted to do something special in her honor. So I thought, what a better way to do it than to actually name the tournament after her and to bring in some teams and some talent from all over the country.
Yeah, and of course, the 2 teams that you brought in, and of course, defeated both of them. You beat William Jessup out of California back last Friday on the 10th of October, and then, of course, you beat Trinity International that next day on that Saturday on October 29th. We'll get to the game logistics in just a little bit, but Coach Daniel, also we know that you're competing in late December in the Phil Cox 3rd Annual Memorial Day Holiday tournament, and that includes teams like Warren Central, Guerin Catholic. I know you guys will play Center Grove, so just tell us a little bit about being able to compete in that and why you decided to put the Wildcats in that class, because it's right near the end of the 2022 calendar year. So just tell us a little bit about the decision to have the Wildcats compete in that tournament.
Yeah. So, I mean, the teams have kind of evolved over the past couple of years here, but one of my good buddies growing up was Coach Peckinpah, who's the head coach at Kokomo High School. So that played a factor. But at the same time, it's great for us to get down there. I knew he was bringing some Indianapolis teams to the area for us to be able to compete against. And so as we try to continue to grow our program, those are the kind of guys that we want to go up against. For us, the Center Grove matchup is going to be great for us. I think they returned like either top 5, top 6 guys from last year's team. And so it'll be a great contest. And then I think on the same side of our bracket is Kokomo and Bishop Lures, Fort Wayne Bishop Lures. So, we kind of know who our first couple opponents might be there. So obviously Kokomo has the big kid, Flory, who's a national, top 5 recruit kid. So it's something we try to get away every year. We try to, coming from college basketball, I wanted to try to give those kids an experience of getting away, getting in the hotels, and how to prepare and how to play multiple games, back-to-back days, all those kinds of stuff helps you in the tournament. So just think it's a good experience and for our guys to do something different. So that's kind of why we chose to get on that way. It's not too far for us either. So
yeah, and then Coach Miller and Coach Daniels will bring you both in. I know it's at the different high school and college level, but also I always feel I'm a big believer both at any level in a non-conference schedule that really gets you ready. Of course, Coach Miller in the Crossroads League, which is I will always stand by, is it's the best conference in all of the NAI, and then of course Coach Daniels in the Northern Indiana Conference got some good schools, of course, like Penn, like New Prairie, like South Bend Clay, like Mishawaka Marion, some good teams. But I always am a believer that the non-conference schedule has to kind of get you ready. But Coach Daniel, like in your case, you play LaPorte and then Jimtown right away in the conference schedule. So for both of you, Coach Daniel, we'll start with you. What is always a big factor that you take into consideration when you decide to pull these non-conference opponents and put them on your schedule?
I think for us, you want a variety of teams. You want teams that when I'm scheduling my summer schedule, I want different experiences. I want to play a team that maybe a different style from us, and I like to try to get our sectional opponents. A lot of times our sectional opponents aren't necessarily our league opponents, so we try to get those on the schedule as well. So we know kind of once we get into conference who we're going against, and I like having more of a scout from a game experience going in those situations, and then trying to play some teams outside of our area, so something a little different. So I think that those all factor into what we try to do, and you usually sign 2, 3, 4 year schedules, so it's not always picture perfect for you, but we try to try to make sure that we look at our roster and who we can go and compete against and those kinds of things, and try to put us in the best situation come sectional time to be playing our best basketball. So.
And Coach Miller, same question when it comes to your non-conference schedule. Of course, you've already played, as I said, William Jessup. You'll play Trinity International. You got the win against IU Kokomo. You'll actually be at Holy Cross on Saturday, which we will have on the Regional Radio Sports Network. So you'll have the unfortunate privilege of seeing me over there.
Be a great time. Yeah, come on, I'm looking forward to it.
And then, of course, the exhibition against Purdue University, Fort Wayne, then Judson before your conference opener over at Huntington. So just tell us a little bit about the decision for your non-conference opponents, because as you know, the Crossroads League is always going to bring in not just some of the best talent in the area, but even in the entire NAIA.
So yeah, I usually subscribe to the, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 method. So for us, it's, kind of like Alex said, we definitely want to see teams that are variety, like that give us different looks. Especially for me, I'm looking for teams that are going to challenge us in the areas where we have major weaknesses. So if I know that we struggle to break the press, I need to find some pressing teams to prepare us more for conference play so that we can improve in some of our weakness areas. But when I say 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I mean we need at least, for the teams that we're going to play that are national caliber, that are really going to challenge us at a high level so that we can be prepared to play those top 2 or 3 teams in the Crossroads League. We need one, 1/3 of those teams that are going to be like a 50-50 game where it could go any way, but we have to learn how to handle close games, and we have to learn how to grind it out, in those games. And then maybe the last 4 games are more like games where we think we should win, so we could probably see a little bit more of the roster and get some other kids some playing time so we can get some freshmen ready a little bit more. You want to do a nice balance of getting challenged, maybe get beat up once or twice so you don't get too much of a big head, and then also maybe a couple times, find the win column and build some confidence as well along that. If you're too heavy on one side, sometimes it can kill your confidence before you even head into a really tough league. And we're going to see a ton of teams, like you said, in the Crossroads League that are already national caliber, so we don't need to see all national caliber non-conference games either. But, Alex is spot on. The variety is key, just seeing a lot of different looks.
And Coach Miller, I talked with Alex before you came back onto the show, and one of the things that I talked about was all the different stops that he had in terms of his coaching career. He was at Yorktown, he was an assistant at IUSB, then at Bethel before eventually landing his first head coaching gig over at South Bend Rally. And of course, before you were at Goshen, Hill McCoy High School in Michigan, that's where you had success there. And the one thing I'm just curious is because, as you definitely know as well, the high school and college games, no matter what level, no matter whether it's on the men's or women's side, are 2 completely different things, not just the shot clock, but just everything about the game. But tell us a little bit about what were some of the big things as you now in your 12th season with the Maple Leafs. What were some of the biggest things that you learned from your high school coaching days that you translated into your college game?
Well, I think one of the things I actually probably had the benefit of in the high school game is really understand how to develop players, because collegiately you recruit players. So you can just go get talent, and if you don't like what you have, you can go get different talent. And a lot of programs, function that way, and especially the highest level, squads, if you don't make it, well, you're sort of expendable, and they'll go find some other kids. But at the high school level, you really have to learn to develop kids, because you're getting what you're getting. You're in a system, and you have to develop the kids at a young age, but also kind of get them in the gym and really figure out what makes them tick and how to, build off of what they have and what they bring to the table. So one of the things I think I brought from the high school realm is that ability to bring players in and then in 4 years help them just develop into better kids, better players. The other thing from high school I think that's interesting takeaway is, I certainly didn't learn about the shot clock, and I certainly didn't learn, some of those things came on a learning curve once I got there. But what I did learn is, when you're playing high school teams, you have a style, and you try to really build that style and build the players at a young age in to match your style. So maybe in 5th grade or 6th grade, if you're a pressing team, you're teaching them young, and you can really kind of get them ready for your system. But what I learned from that is you can really only stick, to me, in my opinion, one style if you have the players developed to play that style. So collegiately, if you're going to go out and get athletes from all over the country, sometimes you get best athletes, but they don't necessarily fit your style. So you either have to choose, are you going to pick only athletes that fit your style, or are you going to adjust your style actually based on the athletes you get? So a lot of people would be big fans of sticking with one style. I'm not. I actually like to adjust to the players that I have and put them in the best situation to be successful with the tools that we get.
Once again, Stephanie Miller, head coach for the Goshen Maple Leafs women's basketball team, and Alex Daniel, the head coach for the South Bend Riley Wildcats boys basketball team. We'll take a 2-minute timeout. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the benefits of the players they have right now, what they like about them, and then also take a look at what they look for in a player, whether it's as a basketball player or whether it's just to represent their program. So we'll talk about the players after this quick 2-minute timeout. Once again, Tanner Camp here, hosting the Coach's Box right here at Beef O'Brady's, and you're listening on 91.1 FM The Globe, globeradio.org, and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
I love that high school sports are about so much more than winning.
I couldn't agree more. While the immediate goal might be to win a game or championship, the real purpose of high school sports is to develop good people, not just good athletes. I'm Robert Falkins, a proud South Bend LaSalle Lion.
And I'm Carrie Rosati, a proud Roncalli Royal. We're both assistant commissioners of the Indiana High School Athletic Association.
In education-based athletics, we care just as much about how student athletes are performing in the classroom as we do about how they're performing on the playing field.
That's because high school sports are a tool to build the character of student athletes, not just their athletic skills.
Developing the whole person rather than just the athlete. That's what high school sports in Indiana are all about.
Support the real purpose of education-based athletics by buying a ticket to your high school's athletic events.
This is training good athletes. This is developing better people. This is your IHSAA.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click, and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click, and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
Thanks again here for tuning into the Coach's Box, 91.1 FM, The Globe, on the Regional Radio Sports Network, and on globeradio.org. As always, a huge shout-out to Dante Stan for the tremendous work that he does over at 91.1 The Globe, and proud to be a graduate over at Goshen College back in 2020. Well, once again, here with Steph Miller, the head coach for the Goshen Maple Leafs women's team, and Alex Daniel, the head coach for the South Bend Riley's boys team. And Coach Miller, we'll start with you. We take a look at this roster, and, of course, I recognize a couple of names. Of course, Susanna Yoder, Emily Brandenberry, and then a couple of names that have really already put their names on the map. And one player that I really think of is Cyan Mohammed, the sophomore from Zimbabwe, Poland, the 6'3" center. And, she's having herself her good year to start with her. 9 points, 7 rebounds, and also doing great in the blocks department, leading the team with 4 blocks right now. Who are a couple other players in your opinion? I know it's only 3 games, and you've had a lot of players, and not just a lot of players play well, but a good diverse of the players who have definitely already gotten used to the system and been under your direction, but players who, well, the 3 games they've played, those are the first 3 games in their college career. So just tell us a little bit about some of the players who you think have been really stepping it up when they need to.
Well, what's fun about this team is that it really is all new. And even though there's a lot of kids that return, not a lot of kids that return with lots of minutes or, game-ending minutes type of thing. We really turned over the roster quite a bit. So we only have 1 returning starter with Cedrea Rougeau. And she's immediately stepped into a good leadership role on the court, and she's definitely a really dynamic scorer for us. She can score in 3 ways, explosive, probably one of the best athletes I've ever coached. Andrea's off to a hot start. We really needed her to step in, and she's definitely done that. I'm really impressed with Cyan, as you mentioned. She's young, sophomore. 6'3", can't teach that. But she also really learns well and just honestly is extremely coachable. So one thing I like about Cy is that she's really always trying to add to her game. She's never satisfied. Sometimes that hurts her, sometimes that helps her. But she's a definite presence in the paint with her stature, and she can also move really well laterally. So I really like what she brings. She draws doubles constantly, which really opens up some of our shooters. A couple other kids to mention, probably Kyla Foster dynamic guard, one of the most talented guards I've probably had. And even though she's a sophomore, she's a leader for us. She's a captain, and I think she's going to grow into probably a pretty explosive player in the Crossroads League. I think she'll be a player to watch this year and then in years beyond. She just can do so many things. She's one of our best defenders. She really has a nose for the ball, can really pass it and set up players. She probably makes other kids better every play. And when she's in the game, you definitely feel the energy. I would probably also add into that category, we have a couple transfers that are really stepping in for us. Zion Need is a really interesting player. She's from Texas, and she comes from Columbia International. Had good time there, and she had success there, but was looking for something different, and we found her along the recruiting trail. Real blessed to find her. She's a glue kid, so she kind of connects things, and she can really, kind of like Kyla, set other people up, but man, she can really shoot it too, and she's a creative scorer. Maybe a little bit, what I would say, risk reward. So she's a risky player sometimes, but she's also dynamic and a playmaker. She's come up with some big plays for us down the stretch of some of these games, and so Zion's one to watch. And Nay Butler, small in stature, she's only 5'3", but man, she's got a big game, and her presence is felt out there. She handles the ball, gets us up in the press really well, and she definitely brings a pedigree of winning. She comes from West Virginia Tech. She's been to 2 national tournaments before, so she's been able to kind of pilot teams down there, and she knows what it takes to win. So we love inserting her in the lineup a little bit. And maybe the last kid is probably one that goes, a little unsung hero of ours, I think, developing is Kiana Oling. Kiana's been a starter the last 3 games for us, and she kind of is your do-everything kid. She doesn't pop out to you as like one of the top scorers or, top this, that, but she's quietly doing like all the little things. She's the most fundamental player I've had, and she's X's and O's off the charts. She's going to coach one day, so I can see it right now even as a sophomore, but she ties all the things together, and she's kind of the engine in the middle of all of it. Got some other young players in Sophia Eli, love her development. And some oldies, like you mentioned, Emily Brandeberry, who's stuck around and is using her 5th year to get a teaching degree. She's a captain of our team and great in our locker room, and she can really push people around in the paint and get some rebounds and mix it up. All those kids bring a lot to the table, and Susanna Yoder's been coming off some injury, but I'm telling you what, even she's coming back. I've really seen a lot out of her in practice, and we hope to get her back on the floor really like herself down the stretch because we could really use that shooting touch of hers. So that's a little bit about our roster. We got some new kids coming in, freshmen, but, I'll hold off on them till they show me something. We'll see what happens.
And Coach Daniel, of course, kind of a different situation as we look at the roster. And, a couple upperclassmen and, Peyton Baird, you've also got Caleb Francis as well, and then Malik Richardson, kind of some of the upperclassmen. Right now it's still in that phase where, you've still got some time until November 22nd on that first game, unless there were some other scrimmages or games prior to that. But when it comes to this roster, at least at this point, who were kind of some of the names that off the top of your head have really shown you that they can make an impact on the South Bend Riley team once the games start to come here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of young kids get some experience last year. I think towards the end of the year, or at the end of the year, we probably played, 8 to 10 games, starting 2 freshmen, with another freshman coming off the bench. So a lot of guys got a lot of good experience, and we're hoping they can take that experience and obviously expand on it and grow. And so we have a really young roster. We have a couple seniors sprinkled in that have had some decent experience at the varsity level, but talking about a guy like Marvin Schindler, who averaged a little over, 10, 11 game last year as a freshman at the varsity level, and then Jalen Barbera, who's another backcourt guard with him, who averaged 6 or 7 points at the varsity level too. But had a couple guys make some good jumps over the summer, and Peyton Baird, like you mentioned, he got some good game experience last year. I think he was kind of thrown in the wolves. All of them were thrown in the wolves a little bit, but I think he realized what it was going to take to make that next level. So he's had a great summer, and then a kid, B.J. Williams as well, who's really just coming to his own. He understands what it's going to take to play at a high level, and so he's put in a lot of work. So excited for those guys, and some of those senior guys are still going to hold us together from a strength and athleticism standpoint. You talk about Ian Bowles, Malik Richardson, Caleb Francis, are 3 guys that have good size on them. We're not a huge team, but they're really good athletes and guys that can go up and grab a rebound for us and are honestly skilled too. I think we'll have multiple lineups that put 5 guys on the floor that can score basketball. So we want to stretch teams. We want to move them around. We want to make them guard us out on the perimeter, and play off some of those strengths. So we're looking to take a jump. So.
Yeah, and Coach Dana will stick with you, and Coach Miller, then I'll eventually turn things over as well. But, it's different in high school because, as you kind of said, and Coach Miller actually alluded to this a little bit, is that, unlike college where you can just, pick and choose the players that you want that fit your system, high school is when you have to have tryouts, or if you think a kid, you can encourage him to potentially come out and try out for the team. But there's got to still be something with coaching. I understand, the wins and losses are still, you want the kids to have a good experience, and you want to win to represent your school and the program. But at the same time, I feel like you also want to make sure you have those kids that represent South Bend Riley and the Wildcats in a good way. So what are kind of some of the things for the players that return that you want to make sure that they understand when they are a basketball player for South Bend Riley, or if there's a kid who's wanting to try out, what are some of the things that they need to make sure they understand before wanting to be a part of the team?
Yeah, when you are at the college level, coming from that experience, when you're looking at those final pieces of a roster, you want talented kids. You want some kids that, this kid has a future. We see some things in this kid that 2-3 years from now, he's gonna be a big part of what we're doing. At the high school level, like Coach Miller mentioned, sometimes you have what you have there at the school. So it's those last spots. You really want to be really thoughtful in those positions, and just making sure that you're getting kids that are going to help in the locker room first and foremost, and then also looking at the future. Who needs the experience? What are you losing? You want guys that are going to represent your program, both at the school and in the community, that you can trust and count on, to be there every day, to bring effort into practice, to try to find a role within the team on the court, and do whatever it takes to win. So, you may pass on a more talented kid, a lot of times when trying to fill out those last roster spots. But I think those pieces are just as crucial as the first guys you're bringing on, just because those locker room pieces, those guys that hold it together, keep it together, and they're not poking holes in your ship in your boat on the way along. So they're trying to plug them up. So,
and then Coach Miller, kind of with the college, you can pick and choose kind of players that either work with your system, but also as someone who was at Goshen and competed in the NAIA as well. I think the one thing I always will give respect for is they really put emphasis on the student and student athlete. And I know that you pride yourself on that as well. You want to get good talent. Unfortunately, you've had some great and talented players over the course going into your 12th season with the Maple Leafs, but you've also done a great job at making sure that you get players who feel you can represent your program even outside of the basketball scene. So just tell us a little bit about some of the other things that Coach Miller looks for in a player to represent not just the Goshen College women's basketball team, or even just Goshen College, but even just as you as a player that was under your direction.
So thinking about that, I think if I were to just pick a few words to describe kids that I'm actually looking for outside of just basketball talent, the first thing I think I would probably pinpoint is resilience. With everything going on in the college basketball world, and the amount of time and effort your sport takes, plus the school and how difficult school can be and the grind of college basketball. There's so many kids that want to play basketball. They want to be involved, but if they're not resilient and they don't, have the ability to persevere through some difficult things, they're really going to fizzle out. They're not going to make it at the college level, regardless of their skill, if they don't have a certain level of toughness. Call it what you want, mental toughness, resilience, but it's the same concept really, which is, if you find a kid who, the second there's some wind in the sail and the storm gets a little rough, that they're just packing it up and getting out of there, you can't develop them and you can't coach them. And what I'm aware of fully with the college basketball schedule is new kids coming in, they don't know till they know that they're going to hit the wall, and they're not ready. And their parents think they're ready, and their hometown thinks they're ready, and they think they're ready. And I'm telling you, they're not ready. And when they get there, they're going to have to hit a couple walls, and if they just fall down and crumble, you're not going anywhere with that kid. So, in addition, if I just switch that to another aspect, half the battle is also how you respond when things don't go well. Kids are always thinking win, win, win. They're never preparing to fail. But you need to prepare to fail. And to me, if you're not prepared to fail, you're not going to learn anything from it. And I'm not saying you're trying to fail. I'm saying you're prepared in your mind. If it does not go my way, how am I going to respond? How am I going to act? And if you've got kids that you put in your program that don't know how to act, and parents that back that up and don't know how to act. That lack of resilience is going to equate to bad teammates, bad work ethic, quitting type of mentality, and really just not the kind of kid I'm looking for. I want the kind of kid who's going to hit the wall and bounce back up, show up tomorrow, be a good teammate, be coachable, and realize that their time will come if they're willing to grind and willing to learn. The other thing I'd say probably that kind of goes along with it is they have to care. Like, they really have to care. They have to care about basketball, care about people, care about their studies. If they're kind of a nonchalant, apathetic, maybe I'll go to class, maybe I'll show up at practice and just check the boxes. Kids who don't really care deeply about the goals that they set for themselves or our team goals, they too are probably not gonna make it, not only in my program, but just in college sports, just because you have to really deeply care about the things that you're investing in order to be coachable, in order to be a really good teammate. And I think if you're a good teammate, you got a shot at being a good player any day of the week.
Once again, Coach Stephanie Miller for the Goshen College women's basketball team, head coach, and then also Alex Dale, the head coach of the South Bend Raleigh Wildcats high school boys basketball team. We're going to take a 90-second timeout. When we come back, we're going to ask Coach Miller and Coach Daniel about some of the big inspirations and some important moments throughout the course of their basketball careers, whether coaching or during the playing days, that helped them become the coaches that they are today. But once again, Tanner Camp here from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana, live from the coaches box, back after this 90-second timeout right here on globeradio.org, 91.1 FM The Globe, and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
Numbers are fine at the deli or donut shop. Next. But you deserve better when you're shopping for a loan or checking account. At TCU, you're a member, not a number. It's how we've done business since 1931, and it means an unmatched level of attention. Ready for better banking? Don't take a number. Next. Become a member today at TCU. TCU, 90 years of personal service. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
The Regional Radio Sports Networks thanks Cuban Networks for their support of high school and college athletics. Since 1986, Cuban Networks is focused on providing a quality experience to their customers. They take computer security seriously and have the necessary tools to keep your digital assets and environment safe. They're located at 103 Polk Street in LaPorte, and their phone number is 219-369-4357. That's 219-369-4357. Cuban Networks, moving and storing data fast and safe. Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Welcome back here to the Coaches Box. As always, huge shout out to Dante Stain. And of course, as you know, if you want to follow Maple Leaf Athletics, GoLeafs.net. That's the place where you want to go. And right here on 91.1 FM, the Globe as well. So be sure that you check that out. And always a huge shout out to Dante Stain for the great work that he does. But here for the Coaches Box, Tanner Camp here with head coach Stephanie Miller from the Goshen Maple Leafs women's basketball team, and Alex Daniel, the head coach of the South Bend Riley boys basketball team. Having a good time here tonight. Appreciate these two awesome coaches for coming out and joining us. And Coach Miller, we'll start with you. For me in my game, a lot of it was based off guys like Larry Bird, like Dirk Nowitzki, like Tim Duncan, kind of, bigs that can shoot and were good around the post. So I'm just curious if there were any coaches that you watched growing up, or if there were any specific players that you watched that you really kind of implemented the coaching style, or just how you really approach the game for these young women. So who are just a couple inspirations, whether it be related to basketball or maybe even just in life in general, that really helped inspire and make you become the coach that you are today?
So the first thing that comes to mind is my high school coach. He was one of the biggest influences on me wanting to just coach, I think. I know this is going to shock you, Tanner, but I was not a tremendous player.
What?
I know you're shocked. I was actually a really good softball player. I played softball collegiately, but not basketball. But I just loved the sport because I learned so much from my high school coach. And he was that kind of guy that was fun, and you liked to be around him, a magnetic personality. And I think what I learned from him the most that made me want to coach was that he actually was one of those coaches that met literally every player where they were at. And everybody's, talks about, like, you want to keep the standards the same for every player and all. I get it. You got to all show up on time. You got to all do certain things on time. But he would coach people differently. And I think that was the first time I ever saw a coach really lean into different players differently based on what they needed. And his name was Steve Sims. He was a legendary coach in the Detroit area in Michigan. Passed away way too young. He was only in his 40s, and he was one of the healthiest guys I've ever known. He's in the Hall of Fame both for track and in basketball in the state of Michigan. Won some track state championships, which I certainly saw that firsthand because we ran a lot at practice. Let me tell you what, when your basketball coach is also the track coach, that's never a good sign. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But he taught me a lot just about how to treat people and how to love the sport, how to think the sport. But there's another guy, and I'm not sure if you've heard of Dave McCracken. Dave McCracken, his father Branch McCracken actually has got his name on the IU floor. It's the McCracken Court down there at IU. And the McCracken family is a big family. He was he won a national championship there at IU, Branch did, and David was his son. They started a basketball camp called the Hoosier Basketball Camp. That was out of Angola at the time, and it was just an old school camp, like on a lake, you know. You'd come to camp, you'd stay in a little dorm, and you'd play out on the old blacktop with the rubber balls back then. But Dave took over the camp for Branch when he passed away, and in 1992, he hired me to work at a camp for him. I loved it, and I met him, and he was a game changer for me. He was someone that I think what I learned the most from him and just wanting to coach was that there's way, way more to being a good coach and being a good player than actual skill. He got to know every kid. He was infectious in his personality. And I think I learned then how much one person can make an impact on your life. And what I really wanted to do in coaching was just be able to make a difference in kids' lives, be there to support them, you know, on and off the court. And the mentorship piece to this day is probably my favorite part of coaching. I love the X's and O's, don't get me wrong. I'm very competitive. I love game day. I love practice prep. But when it comes down to it, you know, my door's always open, and I got a slew of kids rolling in and out because I just really enjoy that part of mentoring young people.
Coach, you know, we talked about it a little bit to the start of the show, but again, who are some of the other couple of people that really mentored you or helped you become the coach you are? And as I said, whether in basketball or even just in general throughout the course of your life.
One, I'm going to apologize for whoever the people is I leave off here, but like I mentioned before, I've had a lot of great experiences and a lot of people that have made huge impacts in my life. But, you know, number one being my father, just, you know, I'm not going to go into his whole story, but just from where he came from to be a person that changes families and the direction of a family and all those kinds of things. So that's obviously is something that I want to carry on, and it, you know, crosses over to my coaching as well as my life in general. But I think Bill Harrell was, you know, my first coach in high school, and he was already the man, the myth, the legend when I got there, and all these stories about him and who he was and the state championships and all the things, and I was able to create my own stories and experiences I had with him. But he was a guy that just kind of wrapped his arm around me and said, "You're going to be good," and that started probably when I was in 8th grade. And when I got to the high school level, he was just the guy that he threw me in the fire and believed in me and gave me an opportunity, and very thankful for that. And I really felt from him that he cared about me and that he was going to be, you know, there for me, and gave me that opportunity. So I had a football coach, John Hostetler, who was this guy that just was such a visionary guy. He saw the dream before you saw the dream, kind of deal, and he put that dream in you, and he did a great job with that. The things he would say and do, and you would never in your wildest dream think those things were going to happen, and all of a sudden you think about Coach Ho and what he said, and all of that thing happened the next night. So that was a guy. And then you know, my first college coaching opportunity was with Chad Tapp, a guy that I played under at Taylor University, and when I came to IUSB with him, it was just an eye-opening opportunity to have those experiences from small college coaching can teach you a lot. So you're still wiping down the floors, you're still setting up on game day. Coach Lightfoot taught me a ton about that kind of stuff. He's just a guy that's been doing it for years and years. But Chad giving me that opportunity and kind of showing me the ropes and the work ethic that he put into what we did, and to a place that was still kind of growing at that point. And he did a phenomenal job at that. And then go back on Coach Lightfoot and just the person he is. When he walks in the room, he makes sure to hug everyone, to thank everyone, to do all the little things. And so that really showed me the mentorship side of things. And those kids, when we were at Bethel, they played for Coach Lightfoot. And he was a guy that was able to get kids to play extremely hard. And it was just his personality and the love that he gave them, and obviously the spiritual background and being a believer and taking kids on that route really inspired me to be the coach I am today. So.
And then to give both of you wrap-up questions, we get ready to wrap things up here for the show. Coach Daniels, we'll start with you first. The South Bend Riley Wildcats will have a good season if this happens. What is this happens that needs to be accomplished, or what do the Wildcats need to really focus on in order to have a good season?
Growth. It's so young. We're still so young, and that comes from a maturity standpoint. It comes from a practice standpoint. We have some talent in the gym. We don't lose games because we're not talented enough. It comes down to the discipline and the approach, and so I think if we can make strides in that area, I would have said if a 7-footer moved in, but I just don't think that's going to happen. But I think if we can just grow, mature, work on our approach to the game, I think we'll make a step this year and give ourselves an opportunity to win the sectional.
And Coach Miller, again, a 3-0 start, which, of course, for our listeners back at home, for those who don't know, the last time that Maple Leafs went 3-0 was in the 2015-2016 season when your team started 4-0, and you ended up finishing the year on a pretty good note, a program record 27-8, and made it all the way to the national semifinals in the NAIA and the Fab Four. But for so far, 3-0 to start this year. You'll have Holy Cross on Saturday, but the Maple Leafs will have continued success this season if, and what is the if?
If we find a way to honestly, truly take every obstacle that we run into and turn it into a lesson. I think a lot of times when you have teams like Alex said, mine's also very young. We've got 11 freshmen and sophomores. We're going to probably see 8 of them on the floor. That's a lot. That's a lot, especially when you're in the Crossroads League. And, I hate to use that as like an excuse or a reason why we would not succeed, because I actually think it's a reason why we're going to succeed, because I think there's a youthful energy and a competitiveness about them. But with a young team, they have to not waste opportunities to learn and grow. Those obstacles when you hit them, those losses or those things that give you a bad taste in your mouth, sometimes kids try to get rid of them and put them in the back of their mind and just say, wish it away instead of really look at it and really learn from it, or really watch it on film and kind of look back and say, what could I do different? So I think if we grow at a fast rate, learn our lessons, and put them to good use, I think we could have a very successful season.
Coach Miller, Coach Daniel, thank you so much once again. Coach Miller, and again, for both of you guys, best of luck in this upcoming season, and we look forward to following you throughout the course of this 22-23 season. Thank you again for coming out to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Tanner.
Thanks, Tanner. I appreciate it.
Once again, huge thank you to Stephanie Miller, the head coach for the Goshen Maple Leafs women's basketball team, and Coach Daniels, the head coach for the South Bend Riley Wildcats high school boys basketball team. And that's going to do it here from the Coach's Box here at Beef O'Brady's. Once again, huge shout-out to Dante Stan for spinning the dials and keeping us on the air so we're not just talking to microphones and headsets and talking to nobody at that case. So thank you to Dante Stan as well. And as always, to 91.1 FM The Globe for their amazing coverage for us when it comes to the Coach's Box or to our Penn-related sport. That's going to do it here for our the Coach's Box here. Tune in again next Thursday as we'll interview more coaches and talk with more around this area. So once again, Tanner Camp here. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to swing things back over to Dante Stan for that culturally progressive music. And once again, for Coach Miller, for Coach Daniel, my name is Tanner Camp saying thank you for tuning into the Coach's Box here on 91.1 FM The Globe, globeradio.org, and the Regional Radio Sports Network. And so long from Granger, Indiana.